not that hard to identify what kinds of gas it is. But it's legally binding, you can worry about afterwards.
And I don't recommend, as great as the movie was, I haven't seen the second one yet for the gas line. I will not put a match to my taps because I have so much, a geologist told me that I have so much methane in my water. They're afraid that if I did that, the gas would ignite up the water lines and possibly either expose underground or blow the house up. They said it's a very dangerous thing to do if you have a lot of gas in your water, so don't do that trick. I've never done it and I won't. And that's why the strange buildings that I have there, the one bottle in the middle that shot the highest, that was in my house. And after that I never did it again because it almost took me slow.
I wish all of Slave Lake was here. I wish all of our surrounding communities were here. What can I do to get the word out? Maybe Arlene and Julie can do another presentation. We can have all of Slave Lake. Like, this is so important.
The methane ethylene propane butane is really serious. The Campbells or ranchers by Canoka, they have the deep thermogenic gases, and the government has slammed that case shut after 8 years.
Right.
Told them to vent the dangerous gases themselves. They've been treated terribly. But there's also the problem that we can't find out what the chemicals are. With Frac Focus, the companies disclose some of the chemicals 30 days after fracking, if you're lucky. Some of them aren't even meeting the requirement to do it within 30 days. How do you baseline test the water well before fracking for all these other chemicals, for the chromium, for evidence of kerosene? There's kerosene range petroleum distillates in the Hamlet water. They're drinking that. But we still can't even find out what chemicals are being injected before fracking now, never mind what happened in my community. There's so much more to it than just the gases. There's the chemicals, there's the naturally toxic chemicals that can be brought up from deeper, your BTEX, your metals. They don't necessarily need to come from frack fuel.
I actually put some information on the brochure. There's websites and stuff you can get further information on some what the chemicals are, what they're used for, what their effects can be and stuff on those websites. But yeah, I did a research paper on that, and I think in my research I found 50 different chemicals used in fluid, in fact, fluid. That's only from one well.
Well, and then there's the additives to drilling mines. When they drill, they also add additives, and some of them, there was a peer-reviewed paper came out in 2010 that stated the companies want us to believe it's just bentonite water that they use to drill, but some of the additives to the drilling mines are more toxic than the fracking additives. And we don't know what those are either.
Well, this kind of reminds me of like that residential school thing, how no one knew about what happened to our people. But over the time, once you talk about it, it gets so big that you can't ignore it. Now they're teaching residential schools to children in grade kindergarten to 12. So this is kind of makes me hope that, you guys are talking about it. This is so awesome. I just wish the whole community was here.
But you can talk about it. Talk to family, talk to friends. Don't talk to them too much, you don't want to drive them all away. There's other questions though. Are you guys coming?
I've never had.
Yeah, I understand. To me, the entire industry is working in an unknown. They have no idea what really the picture is. Everything's hermetically sealed. The shale is, but I don't believe it. I don't think the industry doesn't have a clue what they're getting. They aren't mapping the strat. They don't know what it's like down there. They got some idea, but they don't take into account all the varying type of strata, even if it is 2 miles deep.
I think the industry knows surprisingly a lot, because to make it work, I mean, it's a very complicated procedure. And to do the horizontal drilling and the multi-fracking, it's really, really complicated thing to do. And they figured out how to do it, so they understand a lot about it. I don't think it's necessarily that much. I mean, they don't know everything. They certainly guess at how far the fractures go and so on and so forth. But to me, I mean, I'm repeating myself, because I think attention to details of building these things, like sealing them and making the right. I understand that some of the problems they had in the, which is perfectly optimal, when they do the pipe, they have to put in the couplings. And then what they didn't realize is when they go around and bend it, that those couplings are stressed more than normal. So they're actually having failures in the couplings. So they, so until, again, it's an inattention to detail that does the harm. And that's about, so my main point is that the industry and regulators have to be much, much more careful and much more willing to go the extra mile and make sure that they do it right as opposed to do it quick and cheap.
And sometimes not at all, like with some of the technologies out in Peace River, they have those open tanks, they didn't have any pollution prevention, and just last week, finally, the new Alberta Energy Regulator acknowledges that the 6 families who moved away because they were sick, their health effects probably did come from that, and now they gave them 4 months to install the pollution prevention. So, like we said, it's coming to a point where it's so big, and you just can't ignore it anymore. I had an opportunity to talk to Dr. John O'Connor this morning, the whistleblower up at Fort Chip, who recognized that the cancer rate for certain rare forms of cancer is way higher downstream from the oil/tar sands. And what he said is, he went through a real ordeal, 2 years, 8 months of waiting to hear if the College of Physicians was going to yank his license. No, they didn't. And they settled out of court with him, the public health agency who had sued him for raising undue alarm. They settled out of court, and what he said in reference to the doctors in Peace River who are somewhat apprehensive about treating people with health effects that might be from the oil and gas production industry, is he said they should follow their Hippocratic oath. They should treat people. They should continue to sound the alarm where necessary, because it's obvious now that there is cause for alarm. It's not undue alarm. And those 2 years and 8 months that he had to wait to see if his license was going to get yanked, that's set the precedent. And they were so embarrassed by that they were proven wrong, that they probably won't do that again to anyone. And that those doctors out in Peace River who are, a little leery about, they've been sending people away. They haven't been treating them if they have what they suspect is a hydrocarbon-related health effect. And he said they shouldn't worry, that they should go ahead and treat people. That's their Hippocratic oath. They're supposed to be doing no harm, and sending people away is doing a lot of harm. So, we've come to a point in history, and really it is a historic occasion for the regulator to say, those health effects likely could be caused by the oil and gas industry. You saw the map and the presentation with all the red dots all over the front. Well, we are drilled everywhere. There's a lot all around us. And, it's come to that time when we're seeing health effects, and nobody should be turned away for that reason because a doctor's scared. Because we have a doctor who went through it, and he came out the other side, so there is precedent.
Dr. John O'Connor is one of our keepers of the water board, and so he keeps us attuned to those issues. And I think the thing that epitomizes the Alberta and now the federal government's handling of not only fracking but in situ parallel issues related to the country cousin of in situ, CSS and SAGD and so on. It's had the same situation, and just recently with the Obed coal spill on the river here. The government rushes to avoid anything undue concern. That was the thing that they were most concerned about with John O'Connor. He was raising concerns about bile duct cancers because he might cause undue concern. And so all the cover-ups we see, and I'm delighted to thank you two for coming and sharing with us. Obviously, we could have had a full weekend seminar. I think there's so much important stuff there that we could have had. But we're facing the same thing, and our board members and members in Coal Lake, Beaver Lake, we see what's happening at Primrose Lake with the outbreak of 4 or 6, lots of fissures across the surface, and we're seeing the outbreak of still these oozing, a year later, we've got bitumen oozing out of the surface in the Primrose Lake area. And so we have the same kind of earthquake phenomena. We have, I mean, the company, CNRL, is trying to say, well, this is mainly just coming up the old well bores that had problems with cementing and so on. It's part of that. We can see the fractures going horizontally, and the distance from the one outbreak to the other is 14.6 kilometers and 5 kilometers the other way. So we've got this massive movement laterally in these. And so the kind of evidence and inspiration that you're giving us here, I think we need the same sort of thing in situ as well. It's a parallel process. I don't pretend to understand the pros and cons. I know we've got issues over there with finding out what the chemicals they're using, other than the odd WMIS, getting access to the chemicals through WMIS. It's hard to get it. You can do a FOIP, you don't get it. So we have the same situation right around our province, with not only fracking, but the sort of the sister processes that we have. And I was delighted to hear of the work you're doing, and I don't know whether you're doing work with In Situ or other colleagues at the university who might be, but we desperately need that kind of independent study and research.
No, I'm not involved in any social work. It just hasn't happened. I'm dependent, like I mentioned, I got involved with the Lloyd area simply because I was asked to, and no one's asked me to be involved in SAC-B.
Well, you know, Cold Lake, of course, is heavy oil too.
Yeah.
But just right next door, we're doing In Situ.
I-
And it's a real problem. People that live there, the Cold Lake First Nations people who lived on the Primrose Lake, they got booted out in '52 and taken into the bottom range. And now their homelands is just, you know, got this oil bubbling out of the ground there, filling up the lakes. And the AER and the companies don't know what to do. They won't admit they don't know what to do with it. They're just going to let the pressure gradually ease. These things will bubble now. They've been bubbling over a year. So it'll just happen until the pressure is